got here, and I've got a new show for you to listen to and watch. It's the Disturbances Gods of Odds show, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoiseth and Dave Dabbah.
Welcome to the Disturbances Gods of Odds show, hosted by me, Dave Dabbah, and that is Brad Hoiseth, hanging out in beautiful Southern California. We have 10 picks that are worth picking this week. Now, before we dive into our top 10 National Football League picks worth picking, Brad, I have to tell you, I am absolutely fired up today about Thursday Night Football, the National Football League. What we witnessed last weekend, I have been waiting literally for 4 days, 4 long days to get on a video call and do this podcast with you, Brad Hoiseth. I cannot wait to hear some of your thoughts, and let's just say Brad has some opinions about last weekend, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was... I thought the football itself was actually better football than I thought I was going to see. I thought we were going to have a million penalties, a ton of turnovers, and some of the games were a little bit sloppy. But for the most part, I thought that the teams actually played better than I thought they would. And maybe that's because, you know, we get so used to watching preseason football for 4 or 5 weeks, and we see nothing but a flag fest and the games that end up 13-9 or something like that. But I thought the level of play was actually pretty good. The quality of entertainment, however, I thought was a little bit off. I thought it was a little strange watching football, you know, with no fans in the stands. There was a couple teams that allowed, you know, some fans in the game, and I thought that added to the ambiance a little bit, but I saw that the ratings were way off for Sunday Night Football, and, you know, you see all these hacks, and they come out there and they say that it's, you know, all about the movement and social agenda and stuff like that. I think it's really a lot deeper than that. You know, I think there's so many things going on right now that, you know, first of all, we've all been at home on our couch for 6 months. And so, you know, I know in my case that my family and myself, we've developed a lot of other things to do. And, you know, our lifestyle has changed. And so getting back into the flow of football, to me, was just a little strange. I know, like, you know, from a personal standpoint, my family and I, we do a Zoom meeting every Sunday afternoon, and we've been doing that now for 3-4 months. And so I just think people's lives have changed a lot in the last 6 months, and their values have changed, and their interests have changed. Secondly, and I think maybe most importantly, that there was no preseason football, so there was no promotion. You know, there was no sitting down for a couple weeks and watching the new rookie and getting excited about him playing on week one. There was no constant hammering of you of the first game of the week is between these two teams on Thursday night. There was none of that stuff, no promotional things in terms of opening week. And I do believe that the games not having fans in the stands was a little bit different at times. I found myself going, this is, you know, just weird to be watching a game with, you know, no excitement and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a variety of reasons why perhaps the ratings were off. I don't think it was any one particular thing. I think when you're off 28%, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Yeah. And so, you know, that was one of my takeaways from week one. There was a handful of teams, of course, that were an absolute hot mess. You know, I thought Philadelphia was a hot mess. I thought Cleveland was a hot mess. I thought Miami was a hot mess. And, you know, but that's nothing unusual. We expect Cleveland and Miami to be a hot mess. I thought Philadelphia was a little bit of a surprise. They did not look very good. They looked like a good football team to me.
Yeah. A couple of quick things for you here, Brad. Now, you know, my opinion on the ratings is pretty similar to yours. I just think, you know, there's so much going on at this very juncture at home, you know, in a way. You know, you used to be able to say, I'm not going to Bed Bath & Beyond to your wife because it's Sunday and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch football. But things have changed sort of dramatically at home for a lot of people. We've sort of gotten to the point here where we need a new couch at this point. This pandemic has destroyed our couch literally about 36 months ahead of schedule. I mean, I didn't think I was going to need a new couch at least until the spring of 2022. And that thing has gotten absolutely worn out over the last 6 months. Look, there's so much sort of going on with this pandemic that's affected people in a wide variety of ways. I mean, even, viewership, cable subscriptions down, direct TV subscriptions down. People aren't willing to pay for television the way they used to. And those things are also, I think, certainly sort of affecting this. Look, in terms of the games themselves, it was really interesting because occasionally you'd get a glimpse of what it was actually really like if you were there. You'd see, absolutely nobody in the stands, and then you'd actually get the actual audio to support that. And what struck me is, this just must be just really strange for these players to actually sit there and be playing a real game in front of no fans, not hearing any noises other than, I mean, can you imagine, like having to be on the field and just hearing, Mike Zimmer chirp at you all day long? At least last year, if you were a Viking defender, you'd be able to, it would be drawn out by all of the fan noise that was going on in the stadium. So I think, things are different. There's definitely, I said this in a blog a little bit earlier in the week, but what this actually does is it presents sort of some new wrinkles that can occur in the National Football League this year. And one of those wrinkles is really the hard count. Every quarterback this week should be, at home, sitting in front of a mirror, practicing their hard count, because this is the perfect opportunity for you to get 5 when you need it and draw a defensive lineman off past the line of scrimmage. So I think there's some interesting wrinkles that are sort of new that have been caused by the lack of fans. Look, I, for the most part, really enjoyed the games. Still blown away how bad Phillip Rivers was, how bad Carson Wentz was. A lot of the games, when they did pan to the stands, I immediately felt like I was watching a Detroit Lions game, even if I was watching a Saints game. It was just, it was like the Lions had taken over the National Football League with their lack of fan support at every stadium in the NFL this past week. That being said, I am, as you can tell, I am just so fired up that we are in and having a National Football League season. And I can't wait for us to dive in to our Gods of Odds top 10 picks of the week. With the first pick, I will pass it over to Brad Hoiseth.
Yeah, my number 5 game of the week, and I'm going to preface it saying that, anytime you pick 5 games, you've officially turned into a degenerate. Even the most hardcore gamblers aren't going to pick more than 2 or 3 on any weekend. So when you start getting towards 4 and 5, the chances of getting them right get slimmer and slimmer. But one of my games this week was Washington at Arizona, and the Washington Redskins. They got a victory last week. Their young rookie on the defensive line looked good, and I think this is going to be the only point during the course of the season where the Washington football team is over 500. They go to Arizona, and the Cardinals scored a huge win in San Francisco. I believe, and I think you're going to agree with me on this one, that their young quarterback is a budding superstar. And chasing him around is not going to be like chasing Carson Wentz around last week, because this kid is legit. They're playing at home. He's got a brand new tool to use in DeAndre Hopkins. And I believe the Cardinals, I think they're going to be one of the young, exciting football teams to watch this year. The spread on that game was the Cardinals minus 5.5. I don't believe Washington's a good football team, and I just look at them on paper, and they've got a running back, Peyton Barber, who was a backup in Tampa. They've got a tight end, Ian Thomas, who was a backup in New Orleans. And they've got a quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, who ultimately is going to be a backup, I believe. So I'll take the Cardinals, and I'll give the 6.5 at home in Arizona.
Yeah, look, I'm on the Cardinal bandwagon officially, which will make several of my relatives in the Phoenix metropolitan area actually really really excited because I tend to bash that football organization. But I think the hiring of Cliff Kingsbury, drafting Kyler Murray, you can just see that Kyler's going to make some advances in the second year of his career. When you think about a quarterback like Kyler and you compare him to, I don't know, like a Baker Mayfield, who I can't wait to watch blow it on Thursday Night Football. I cannot wait. I know we're going to cover that game in a little bit, so I'm not going to get into all of it, but I can't wait for this Thursday Night Football game to get here and watch Joe Burrow take down the dog pound. That being said, watching Kyler Murray, especially towards the end of last year, that he is going to be a good quarterback in the National Football League. He might not turn into, Patrick Mahomes, but he's still going to be a good quarterback in the National Football League, and he's going to win a lot of games for your team. Enter Bill O'Brien and the worst trade in the history of the National Football League since, of course, Herschel Walker. When it was like 16 for Watt in that trade, which is terrible. So, someday I'll tell you about my elevator ride with Herschel Walker in Newport Beach, but another day for that story. I will say this, DeAndre Hopkins, 15 receptions last week, set a career high for himself. They are an excellent team. This game, I would absolutely go ahead and take the points and go with the Cardinals for sure. All right, Brad. Let's see here. My first pick that we're going to cover of my top 5 is going to be the Falcons Cowboys pick. And for those of you in Cowboy Nation that noticed, I picked the Cowboys for the first time in the history of my young life to actually win the Super Bowl and run the table this year. I was not in any way surprised by how the Cowboys played on Sunday Night Football. I thought it was a fairly evenly matched game between the two of the better teams in the NFC this year. Good news, Cowboy fans. Take the 4.5 points, and you will do in the Falcons at home in an extraordinarily easy way, because your offense and CeeDee Lamb are going to turn the Falcons into I'm trying to come up with something that rhymes with Home Depot, but unable to. On that note, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brad and get his opinions on the Falcons-Cowboy game.
Yeah, first of all, the Falcons remain a mystery to me. I'm not quite sure how that guy's kept his job for so many years in Atlanta. Yeah. I'm not a huge Matt Ryan fan. I think he's wildly inconsistent, a lot like Matthew Stafford. And I'm with you. I believe the Cowboys are a good football team. I think they had a tough assignment last Sunday night going into Los Angeles to play, which is a pretty talented Rams team. I'm not, we'll get into that later on, but I'm with you. I think the Cowboys cover here. I would say right alongside you there. Take the Cowboys, give the 4.5 at home. By the way, another note I wanted to bring up earlier: home team's only 8-8 last week, so the crowd noise factor is not going to be there for a lot of these teams. And so, like you said, with the snap count and things of that nature, these are things that are going to be a lot different this year with no fans in the stands. But in this particular case, I'm not a believer in the Falcons. I just don't think that things have changed there. I think they need a new voice leading the team, and I think the Cowboys win this one handily. Yeah,
just more of the same with the Falcons. The offense is pretty good. and they have very little help on the defensive side of the ball. Cowboys should absolutely control this game from the start to the end.
My fourth game of the week, every once in a while, once or twice a week, you'll see a line at the beginning of the week. It comes out and you just go, wait, what? And that line was the Chiefs-Chargers game where Kansas City goes to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. And the initial line came out. It was 5.5. And I just thought something is really wrong here. The Chiefs looked really good on opening Thursday. The Chargers won, but they did not look very good. Then you add in the fact that the Chiefs played Thursday, so they got another 3 days to prepare for the game. And it's almost as if Vegas was like doing everything they could to get you to take the Chargers, or rather to take the Chiefs and give the 5.5 points. And people did. The line in 1 day went up to 8.5. I say Vegas knows something. I'm saying take the Chargers, take the 8.5 points. Something's up with this game. They know something. I don't know what it is. Dabbah, maybe you got more insight into this, but I'm saying take the Chargers and take the 8.5. It's a conference divisional matchup. Those are always tougher than the others.
Yeah, I sort of struggle with this too because I saw the same thing you saw with the initial settings, and my immediate thought was the guys in Vegas are up to something on this game. I'm still not buying it. I'm still going to go ahead and take give up the points and go with the Charger or the Chiefs in this game. I just don't believe in Tyrod Taylor at all. If I told a friend this earlier in the week, I said, look, I'll change my opinion if 48 hours before the start of this game, the Chargers make the announcement they're going to make at some point in the next 4 weeks, which is Justin Herbert is going to be their starting quarterback. I do not need to see any more Tyrod Taylor. I know who Tyrod Taylor is. Assuming that Justin Herbert knows enough about the offense at this point, he can certainly hand off the ball as much as Tyrod Taylor. I know they want to ease him into it. This Charger team should have played a lot better against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Cincinnati actually gave them that game on a platter in the fourth quarter. And I just don't see the Chargers sort of figuring things out enough to slow down this Kansas City Chiefs team heading into this weekend. All right, with my fourth pick of the week, Mr. Hoiseth. This is what I call my Hoiseth special. Occasionally when we're doing these kinds of shows, I like to pick something that I know is sort of deep to Brad Hoiseth's heart. And this one absolutely is. Now, when I was putting this together at the time, the odds were even between the Rams and the Eagles. Hoiseth, I'm not sure if anything's changed on that at this point. That being said, if it's a straight pick-me game with the Rams going to Philadelphia, I do not in any way trust Carson Wentz at this stage of the game. I trust Sean McVay. I like Jared Goff. I know Hoiseth doesn't, but I do. I like this Rams offense. They didn't throw a single touchdown pass against the Cowboys. They used their running game, which was one of the most surprising things. Ball control offense is exactly what the Los Angeles Rams are. And I don't see the Philadelphia Eagles actually turning things around like in 48 hours to sort of figure out how to fix the holes that this team has.
Well, yes and no. I mean, first of all, I think you have...
Water is wet, water is dry.
Wait, first of all, I think you have two of the better young... Well, I don't know if I call Johnson a young coach anymore, but I think you have two of the better coaches in the league. And, people can argue that all they want. I think what you have, though, and you know how I feel about both of these guys, is I think you have, in my mind, unquestionably the two most overrated quarterbacks in the league. And the question I ask myself is, okay, well, at the very least, Carson Wentz has been kind of handcuffed. He hasn't had a lot of things to throw to. And when your top two targets on your team are both tight ends, you're really depleted at the wide receiver core. Well, John Jackson is supposed to be a little more healthy this week. They get Miles Sanders back. And I believe, as much as I thought the Eagles were a hot mess, I thought it was a mediocre win for the Rams. I didn't walk away from that thing saying, wow, this is a really good football team. And I believe that Jared Goff is a worse quarterback than Carson Wentz. And so I'm going to take the Eagles at home. I probably ordinarily wouldn't bet this game, but just for the sake of argument, I'm going to take the Eagles because, unlike Dabbah, I don't think they're going to be making the call for Nick Foles in a couple weeks. And so I'm gonna go opposite here. I'm going to take the Eagles in that one, Dabbah, at home, even though there's not much home field advantage these days. I don't think it could possibly look that bad 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, like I said this earlier in the week. I said that Carson Wentz is going to play so bad in the first half of this game against the Rams that at halftime the Eagles are going to trade for Nick Foles. All right, Mr. Hoiseth, on to your next pick.
Yeah, my number 3 game of the week is two other teams that nobody has any interest in. It is the Giants visiting the Bears. And the first thing I saw this, and it was the Bears favored by 6. The Bears should be favored over anybody by 6. That's a bad football team. They got a gift given to them last week when DeAndre Swift dropped the ball right in his hands with 6 seconds left. The Bears should be 0-1. The Giants are not a good football team, but they are young. They do get Golden Tate back this week on the road. I just think that's way too big of a spread. I'm going to take the Giants and the 6 points going into Chicago.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on Mitch Trubisky comebacks. Even the fans in Chicago, as happy as they were that they won that game, they were probably a little disappointed that it was Mitch Trubisky that did it. Still, this is a game that I looked at when you had put this on the list of your top 5 games, and I'm like, God damn it, Hoiseth, what the hell? Seriously, you're going to make me talk about Saquon Barkley and how bad he's playing. You're going to force me to bring up Jason Garrett. You're going to make me go down that path in having to talk about this game. And then at the end of the day, after I do all of that, and I'm giving you the short version of that right now because that's all it deserves, I've got to go with Chicago at home. It still matters. The Bears are going to find a way. Look, it's probably going to be Nick Foles in the second half of this game anyways, because the Eagles will get turned down in their trade offer. Look, I bet the Chicago Bears cover this. I'm going with the Bears, and that's all I want to say about that.
You're telling me the Bears are going to be 2-0 after 2 weeks in the NFL. That's, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So my third pick, and I've sort of I've been tinkering with this for a little bit. I'm going to go to Sunday Night Football, where ratings, as Brad mentioned earlier in the broadcast here, were down 28%. The question is, will those ratings go up a little bit this week with a week of the National Football League sort of back in the spotlight and a pretty darn good game, at least on paper? Lots of storylines here. Patriots at the Seattle Seahawks. If you're taking the Seahawks, you got to give up 4. This is an absolute no-brainer for a wide variety of reasons. It's not that I don't like Cam Newton as a person. It's not that I don't like Cam Newton's workout videos. It's not that I don't like the love affair that's developing between Cam Newton and Bill Belichick. Hell, Belichick didn't say anything nice ever about Tom Brady publicly. Cam Newton's been there for 4 weeks, and they're suddenly, going on double dates together. It is absolute ridiculous thing for poor Tom Brady to watch this unfold in front of him. That being said, like 155 yards passing last week, 75 yards on the ground for Cam Newton, 2 touchdowns. That is not going to be good enough to beat the Seattle Seahawks at home. Jamal Adams will not allow Cam Newton to rush for 75 yards, let alone 2 touchdowns in this game. Best player in defense outside of Aaron Donald is Jamal Adams, and the stupid New York Jets had to go ahead and sign Adam Gase as their head coach so he could just destroy that franchise for another 2 or 3 years. Hoiseth, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think Seattle, although, there's no 12th man, that kind of thing this time around, and that usually is a big factor for Seattle, when they're at home. I don't think Seattle's defense is, everybody thinks of Seattle and they remember the great defenses they've had in the last 7-8 years. This defense is not very good. Having said that, I think you don't have to be very good to stop this New England offense. I just don't think there's a lot of weapons there. A lot of people have been very happy after playing the Miami Dolphins. And so, the read option and the plays that, Cam Newton scored on, those are pretty easy things to defend once you've seen them on tape a couple of times. And so I believe Seattle's a good football team. I don't think they're as strong as they were 3-4 years ago, something like that. But I do believe that, playing at home and making New England cross the entire country to play him has to be worth some sort of advantage. And I see them as a 4-point favorite. And I think, that's a pretty good bet. I mean, I would say they'll win by 6 or 7 points, maybe 8. So I'm in agreement with you. I say take the Seahawks and give the 4.
Yeah. And do you remember last year, like halfway through the season, Russell
Dabbah,
Wilson.
I don't remember yesterday.
But last year, halfway through the season, Russell Wilson was your National Football League MVP. I mean, he was having a great year. We knew Lamar Jackson was having a great year. And they were close for about half of this season. Russell Wilson hasn't changed at all since last year. He's going to put up another MVP caliber season. I'm not saying he's going to win MVP, but I absolutely love this Seahawks game at home. If I were picking just one game this week, it would be either that Seahawks game or one of the games that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. Hoiseth, what's next up on your list?
Okay, my number 2 game, one that's near and dear to the Dabbah household, is the Vikings visiting the Colts. 2 teams, frankly, that did not look very good last week. And I'm going to play the over-under in this game, which is at 48. And that's a pretty high over-under for 2 very mediocre offensive football teams. And I believe that over-under was set because they knew fans were going to look at the Vikings game last week. I don't think that had anything to do with Indianapolis. I think it was everything to do with the Vikings and the Packers scoring 77 points. And people said, well, the Vikings scored 34, but they also gave up 43, and that defense is really bad. I don't think that's really the case. I think the case of the Vikings game last week is that they ran into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think every once in a while, Aaron Rodgers is just going to be special on an afternoon, and you're going to look bad. But, the way Aaron Rodgers really hurt the Vikings badly was on the deep passes, and he was like right on the money. The coverage was actually pretty good, but he burned them 2 or 3 times on deep passes. The Vikings are not going to see that this weekend going to Indianapolis. Phillip Rivers is basically a statue back there. It's not like they have the threat of Aaron Rodgers taking off and running. I think the Vikings defense will look a lot better this week. I'm still not a believer that the Vikings offense is very good. They entered the 4th quarter with 60-something yards passing last week. They got to get that out. They got to get the young kid Jefferson more involved. They've got to get Irv Smith more involved. Going on the road, Indianapolis, nobody wants to start out 0-2. I see this being a field goal fest. I'm going the under. It's an over-under 48. I just see this game being more in the 23 to 16 range.
Yeah. So Brad and I are definitely going to disagree on this one. And here's why. I'm taking the over on this at 48 points. And the reason why isn't because I think the Vikings are going to score, 25 to 30 points, though I think they probably will. It's because the Viking defense, and specifically the secondary, is horrific, or at least they played horrific in week 1. And yeah, they'll get better over time, but they lost too many pieces of key ingredients in that secondary in the last 24 months for them to sort of mesh together. They certainly did not mesh together well in that game against the Packers. It was even from the beginning to the end, I saw very, very little improvement that occurred during the game to lead me to believe that this secondary is going to be any better this week against a Phillip Rivers. Now, Phillip Rivers is not Aaron Rodgers at this stage. I could see Hoiseth. I could see the steam coming out of his head. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? But that secondary was that bad, and they got no pressure on Aaron Rodgers at all. None whatsoever. Hell, Hoiseth, he was back there. He went ahead and he called Jake from State Farm, and he actually updated his home insurance policy. That's how much time Aaron Rodgers had against the defensive line of the Vikings last week.
Dabbah, let me say something right here. I'm going to give you a little bit of I'm going to give you a positive stroke for your ego, okay? I'm going to give you something to chew on here a little bit. If you ran against Phillip Rivers in a 40-yard dash, I think you would beat him by 15 yards. Okay? How does that? I mean, this guy is done. I don't know if anybody watched him last year. He was done last year. His career is over.
And I'm a huge...
I don't, look...
Yeah, I was going to say, and I'm with you. I'm a huge Phillip Rivers fan, but it's over. I mean, it's been over for 2 years now, and
and the Colts are not going to beat the Vikings deep. He is not going to be able to throw over the top of them, and I think the Vikings are a much better defense when they keep the game in front of them. I think they're a pretty good tackling defense. I think their linebackers are pretty good in pass coverage. I just don't see this going well for the Colts at all.
All right. Well, people out there listening to the Gods of Odds for the first time, you will have to wait and see which God is correct. I do want to say one last thing about... No, I have to. I don't know if you saw this earlier in the week. Or not earlier in the week, earlier today. It happened today. Trent Dilfer.
How early? Because I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. I was like, maybe Hoiseth got to Trent, and he had Trent say the following. Trent Dilfer actually went on national television, or no, he went on the Ryan Russillo podcast, which is a good podcast. And he went on the Ryan Russillo podcast on The Ringer, and he went on to say that he thinks that the draft pick of Jordan Love wasn't really about the Green Bay Packers deciding to take a quarterback of the future, as much as it was about trying to motivate Aaron Rodgers to be great again. Now, this, like, I heard this, and I'm like, I've heard a lot of ridiculous things in the last 6 months. I've seen a lot of ridiculous things happen. But when you actually sit back and you actually think about, on the surface, what Trent Dilfer is saying, they wasted a number 2 draft pick, Trent. You're telling me they wasted a number 2 draft pick to try to provide some extra encouragement to the quarterback that took you to the NFC Championship game last year? Ridiculous statement. I'll get your opinions on this.
Well, I said this, didn't I not? I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers will be more motivated. And if what we saw in week 1 is a guy that has the number 2 quarterback rating in the league, and he looks spectacular. I mean, that was as good as I've seen Aaron Rodgers look in a number of years. And that's the truth of it. He was on his game, and that's why I say I don't think the Vikings defense is as bad. I don't think you're going to see that kind of performance again for quite a few weeks. Maybe it'll be the Packers again. Who knows? Vikings got a tough schedule, but I think they show up this week on defense, and they win that game in Indianapolis. Now, who's your number 2? I'm all ears on this one.
It's so difficult because it was between Thursday night football game and the Monday night football game, and we're gonna go. My number 1 pick is going to be Thursday night's football game. So my second pick of the week is the Saints at the Raiders. Now, if if you're taking this game and you're taking the Saints, you give up 5.5 points. At least that's the spread was when we put this thing together. And so the question is, will the Saints have enough to go into Las Vegas in that brand new Death Star where the Emperor lives and Darth Vader is there? I hear they're keeping Kyler Loren out of the stadium at all times because he's the fake Darth Vader. I think that this game is actually, go ahead and take those 5.5 points, take the Raiders at home in their brand new stadium. This is a vastly improving Raider team. It's something I didn't expect to see last week. I'm not buying Derek Carr, but the Saints did not look as great as everybody thought they looked against Tampa. And it was just a couple erred Tom Brady, I'm 43-year-old, bad passes to wide receivers that didn't run the correct patterns that allowed the Saints to actually win the game. Plus, their star wide receiver, which you have some news on, is actually not going to play in this game as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Michael Thomas, the reports out there, he's out for a few weeks. High ankle sprain. That's a big target. That's a guy that catches about 100, 110 passes a year for them. He's a guy that has the ability to stretch the field. They don't have Ted Ginn anymore. They can't really throw the ball deep. I saw them take some steps backwards, I thought, on offense last week. And I don't know if it was because their wide receiver was playing hurt or what. I still don't think Alvin Kamara's the same running back without Mark Ingram next to him. And I think that the Raiders playing at home, I think 5.5 points is a lot of points. The Raiders offense can score some points. They got some good young players. I don't think they have any defense. It's going to be a high scoring affair, but I still think whoever has the ball last wins this one. I don't know who wins it, but I think 5.5 is too much. I'd take the Raiders, and I'd take that 5.5 all day long.
Yeah, I mean, biggest fantasy football mistake I made all year was Josh Jacobs. And just I knew it at the time, and I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. All right, Brad, what's your number one game of the week? Everybody has been waiting. God himself has been waiting.
Yes. I think you and I are going to be in agreement on this one. One of the lines that just pops out at you when you see it. The Bills are at the Dolphins, and the Bills are Dolphins are, in my opinion, one of those teams that are a hot mess. And it's not like this is a recent hot mess. The Dolphins have been bad. They might be the worst organization of all of football. And to only be giving up 5.5, I think the Bills are a really good young football team. And they had their moments last week, and Josh Allen put the ball on the rug a couple times, and they made it probably closer than it should have been. But they were clearly the better football team than their opponent last week, and I think they're clearly the better football team than their opponent this week. And without the home field advantage of no fans in the stands, I just believe the Bills are a lot better football team. They're only giving up 5.5. I got to hit that all day long.
Yeah, a couple things. One, where Brad is wrong. Should be a new segment on the show. Where Brad is wrong.
It'll be a short.
Yeah, it would be short.
Segment, by the way.
The worst teams in the National Football League are not the Miami Dolphins. It's the New York Jets. It's the Cleveland Browns, and for the last couple of years, it's also been the New York Football Giants. Miami is bad, but there are worse organizations in the National Football League. They picked Tua, and wait till you see it, because Tua Watch 2020 is officially on. It will happen at some point. I guarantee it. In the next 4 weeks, we will see Tua resurrect this Miami Dolphins franchise. That being said, Buffalo, you can't bet against Buffalo in this game. I agree with you. I'm going with the Bills. Too much firepower. I love Josh Allen's strong arm. Stephon Diggs actually played pretty well in his first game as a Buffalo Bills as well. Once they sort of figure out how to use all of these pieces together, they should be pretty lethal. The only thing that I sort of have against the Buffalo Bills heading into this game and basically heading into just about any game that they play in is I'm just not sold on their coaching staff. So I'm you can see it. You can see the highlights of this game showing up on Sunday night with the upset special. Dolphins beat the Bills because something stupid that somebody did on the coaching staff allowed it to happen. That being said, go ahead and take the Bills in this one.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of stupid coaching decisions, this is another thing I wanted to get out of there, and I forgot to get it out before we started this whole thing. This guy in Denver, Fangio. I mean, look, I watched this guy last year like 3 times. I was watching the game, and I'm going, how is this guy a head coach? He's the worst X's and O's guy, clock management guy since Denny Green. For crying out loud. And you watch that disaster where he didn't call any timeouts playing against it. I'm just John Elway's a competitor. How long has this guy lasted as the head coach there?
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking, to sit there and sort of see, clock management should just be a no-brainer at this point in the National Football League. And I don't understand why an organization, because this is an organizational issue. This just isn't the head coach. It's who the head coach hires and who the head coach actually listens to throughout the game. And you shouldn't be making the basic mistakes like clock management, especially when you're in the last couple minutes of a half or a game. And to watch it go down on national television, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is he doing? What is he possibly thinking? Is he saving them so he can ice the kicker that's already missed 4 kicks? Like, yeah. What is he doing? So I'm glad you brought it up because it was ridiculous.
No, and I'm sure Nick Fangio is a nice guy. He looks like a nice guy, by the way, and he was a pretty good defensive coordinator, if I recall. And but some guys, there's the old thing called the Peter Principle, and some guys just get jobs that they don't deserve. I've just seen too much of it now. If I hadn't seen it 3 times last year, I wouldn't have been going nuts in week 1 of this year. And I actually think this Denver football team is pretty talented. I mean, they've got some young talent on offense. That is going to be really fun to watch down the road. I'm not entirely sold on Drew Lock yet, but the Jerry Judys and the Cortland Suttons and stuff like that, and they had an opportunity to beat a really good Tennessee football team. I just thought that you can't let opportunities, when you only got 16 games, this is not the major leagues of baseball where you can put in a pitcher and he gets shelled in the 8th inning and you lose a game. You get 16 opportunities, and you got to try to win at least 9 of them if you want to have any chance of making the playoffs. And I've just seen this guy just do this way too many times now. And I can't imagine that John Elway woke up on Monday morning or Tuesday morning. He was feeling very good about that.
No, and look, I like Nick Fangio. I thought he was a really good defensive coordinator with the 49ers back in the day. Did a really nice job with the Bears as well. He's been in the National Football League for a very long time. A good coach. I will say that. A good coach. The basics of time management in the National Football League by a head coach should be something that is almost automatic. And the fact that it isn't time and time again really must have prevented John Elway from even attempting to go to sleep after that game. Look, it was bad enough that their star rookie wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, who dropped 2 passes that could have, the Broncos could have easily won that game as well, and it could have been a completely different story and outcome in that one. But yeah, Elway's just not gonna they're just and it's a shame because, as you pointed out, the offense is young. They've got some nice pieces. I got to tell you, that defensive line. That might have been one of the best defensive line performances I saw all weekend. And they are powerful. And I know Von Miller's out, but they have a really nice, aggressive defense up front. The Broncos have enough talent to be a playoff team this year. And it's just a question of, do they have the right people on their coaching staff to actually make that a possibility. And this particular coaching staff seems to be working against its players. All right, Hoiseth, let's get into the last game here real quick. The last game of the Gods of Odds, our first ever show on the Gods of Odds on the Disturbance. I am going with the Bengals. Joe Burrow, the powerhouse that might be Joe Burrow someday, against the Cleveland Browns at the Dog Pound, minus the dogs. I'm not sure. Brad, do you know if they're letting anybody into this game?
I don't. Who knows? I mean, they used to call that stadium the Mistake by the Lake when I was a kid. And so who knows? I have not heard the reports on it. We'll find out in a few hours, I guess, right?
All right. Now, if you're going to take Baker Mayfield in this game, you give up. You have to give up 6 points to take Baker Mayfield to win this game. And this game is more of a. I mean, that's a lot of points if you consider how bad this Cleveland Browns team played week one in the game. And I don't want to hear anything about, who they played and all this other stuff. You can still, like the Vikings played terrible and they still scored, a significant amount of points in the game. And they still figured out how to make adjustments and make changes on the offensive side of the ball. This Cleveland Browns team is an absolute disaster. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, the Browns made a mistake at head coach hiring Kevin Stefanski. Let's face it, Kevin Stefanski's most popular play is the screen pass. That and the wide receiver reverse. That is his sweet spot as a call player in the National Football League. This Browns team is bad. Baker Mayfield has been bad for a really long time. I have been saying for over a year that Baker Mayfield is going to be a really nice backup in the National Football League. He is not a starting quarterback. All of that being said, I've got to go ahead and still take the Browns tonight in this game just because we haven't seen enough of Joe Burrow yet. We know the holes. There's too many of them to talk about with the Bengals. That's where I stand. How about you, Brad?
Well, I'm taking the Browns. I mean, I thought you were all that promotion. I thought you were going to take the Bengals. The Browns are a -6. They're at home. I watched the Bengals team last week, and I thought Joe Burrow had some moments where he looked okay. I just thought that the offense was very vanilla. That was one of the most boring games of the day. The Chargers and Bengals was just like watching paint dry. And I think at some point they're going to have to try to open things up there a little bit in Cincinnati and expose their quarterback a little bit. I just have a feeling about this one, and I know I don't like to bet on feelings, but I have a feeling that the Browns are actually a better football team than the one we saw last week. They've got a lot of talent. Let's face it, they've got a lot of number one picks on that team. I think at home they were embarrassed. It's a short week if you're the road team playing on a Thursday night. We usually see bad football on Thursday night. Don't get me wrong. I think it'll be a bad football game, but I'm going to take the Browns because I think, and this, I'm going to use a word that doesn't even exist, because I think the Bengals are badder. How's that?
Brad, I got to tell you, I was hearing you talk, and I started to think about it, and I'm going to give you this. You know what? The hell with it. I cannot, in good conscience, tell people out there to take the Browns tonight. I'm going to go ahead and switch my pick. It is not happening. I cannot get on this podcast and talk about Baker Mayfield being a backup quarterback in the National Football League for the last, 12 months, ripping on Kevin Stefanski the way I am, and in good conscience, go ahead and pick the Browns to win tonight and take the points. I'm switching it to the Bengals. Look, we don't know enough about Joe Burrow in the National Football League. He looked okay for his first game. We know Zach Taylor is not the next Sean McVay, which is concerning. The other sort of concerning thing about Joe Burrow is you're in your first National Football League game, because I watched a lot of the Charger Bengals game, and you're in your first game, and you should be looking at your Microsoft Surface. Every time you get off the field, you should be looking at tape and pictures, and you should be talking to people. And there was none of that going on. There was no education, no learning going on for Joe Burrow. That being said, I like the Bengals in the upset tonight. Joe Mixon, they've got some other nice pieces at wide receiver. I cannot wait for tonight's train wreck, which is going to be Baker Mayfield, OBJ, yelling at each other, yelling at coaches, and hopefully we're able to hear all of this stuff actually go down on live national television.
Let me ask you this. I saw Joe Burrow, and I thought he had some moments. He had one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. He tried to backhand a ball. He threw it right to a linebacker, and it was a terrible mistake. And, you learn from those mistakes, and that's a rookie mistake. And I think you'll see more of those rookies' mistakes play out. And I say this a lot of times about whoever the best SEC quarterback is on any given year. Whether they're from Alabama or LSU or Georgia or whatever. They get so used to in college having far superior talent around them. When you're playing quarterback for Alabama, you're lining up 11 straight weeks or whatever it is, and you just know when you go into the game, the guys that you got around you are better than the guys on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And so I think this is a lot of the reason why these guys have not panned out in the NFL. And I'm not saying Joe Burrow's not going to pan out. I think he's a different kind of talent. He's more like a Cam Newton, that he can run a little bit. We saw what he can do with his legs when he took off and run and scored the first touchdown of the game for them. But I did see some rookie mistakes there, and I think it's going to take a little time to sort out, because unlike when he was at LSU, he doesn't have the best talent around him. And I'm not sure who's going to be the boss there. They made him the captain. What does that tell you about the Bengals? They made a rookie quarterback that had not taken a snap of live fire the captain of the team. Now, you can say, well, he's a real team leader. He's a kid. He's a kid.
Yeah, I'll cite this about the Bengals organization at this point. Tonight, when you're watching the game, watch what happens when they pan to Joe Burrow on the sidelines. If it's a duplication of what we saw against the Chargers last week, I'm serious. Like, they kept panning to Joe Burrow just sitting there, not with a Microsoft Surface, not with photographs, not talking to coaches, not talking to anybody. That's leadership, Brad.
Yeah, I saw some disturbing things out of Joe Burrow during the offseason. And look, he may have had the greatest college football season a quarterback has ever had a year ago. But he's showing up on things, smoking cigars, and there's an air about him that, to me, you can get away with that when you're winning. And same thing really can be said about Baker Mayfield. He made more commercials than touchdowns last year. And so, at some point you got to win. I don't mind you smoking a cigar and acting, wild and crazy when your team is 6-1. But we got to see something from the kid. And like I said, I just don't see the supporting cast there around him. He's not going to be surrounded by guys that are just better than the guy they line up against. And for that reason alone, I'm saying that the Bengals start 0-2, and I'm going with the Browns and that experienced quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Baker will get benched. The Browns are going to lose. If they could fire Kevin Stefanski after 2 games, they would do it. I'm just saying. All right. Hey, listen, I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in to the very first ever Gods of Odds show on The Disturbance. That is Brad Hoiseth. I am Dave Dabbah. For more, as I call it, semi-witty, because it's pretty witty, semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure to check out our big website, which got a refresh last week at mighty.rip.